Jashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupat Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Shatashishimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupat Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Shatashishimad His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada's Appearance Days Ki Prense Kaho Se Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Garantara Shriman Bhagavatam Ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shishiguru and Shiguranga. Actually, this verse was read yesterday, no? Yeah. You did 4? Because today I'm supposed to do 6 and 7. Well, I can read this anyway. It's all right. Yeah. Utapanai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Summon Bonon, Chapter 44, Krishna Kill Kamsa, text number 5 through 7. Utapanair unajanais Chalanais tapanair api Parasparam jigishantav Apachakratur atmanaha Uttapanair unajanais Chalanai stapanair api Parasparam jigishantav Apachakratur atmanaha Uttapanair unajanais Chalanai stapanair api Parasparam jigishantav Apachakratur atmanaha. Please chant. Utapanair unatjanais Chalanais tapanair api Parasparas jigishantav Apachakratur atmanaha. Utapanair unajanais Chalanais tapanair api Parasparam jigishanto Apachakratur atmanaha Uttapanai with lifting up Janai carrying Chalanai pushing away Stapanai holding stationary Api also Parasparam each other Jigishantao waiting victory Apachakratuhu they harmed Atmanaha even themselves. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Translation: forcefully lifting and carrying each other, pushing each other away and holding each other down, the fighters hurt even their own bodies in their great eagerness for victory. Purport: Srila Jiva Goswami explained that although Krishna and Balaram did not, of course, harm themselves, he appeared that way to Chanura, Mushtika, and the others and others of mundane vision. In other words, the lords were fully absorbed in the pastimes of being wrestlers. Text number 6, which is actually today's 6 and 7. Tadbalavala judham sameta sarvajoshita uchuparas param rajam sanukampa barutasha. Translation: my dear king, all the women present consider in the match an unfair fight between the strong and the weak, felt extreme anxiety due to compassion. They assembled in groups around the arena and spoke to one another as follows. So, Maharaj Parikshit is addressing, Sukadev Goswami, Srila Sukadev Goswami is addressing Maharaj Parikshit. So the women assemble and the spokes are followed. Text number 7. Maham ajatat bata dharma esham raja shabashadam jebala balabajudham ragyom vichanti pashataha. Translation: the woman said, alas, what a greatly irreligious act the members of this royal assembly are committing. As the king watches the fight between the strong and the weak, they also want to see it. Purport: the idea the ladies are expressing is that even if the king somehow wanted to see such an unfair match, why should the respectable members of the assembly also desire to see it? These feelings are natural, even nowadays. If in a public place we find a violent fight going between a very strong, large person and a weaker, smaller person, we are aroused to indignation. Compassionate women are especially offended and engaged and enraged by such an unfair violence. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ummilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Ramapada Swami. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirveshesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So today is the auspicious celebration of His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada. And we're going to hear a little later this morning the glories of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. We can come together and glorify his appearance day and also perform the Puspanjali ceremony in his honor. I'm going to read the purports and the explanations that some of our Vaishnava acharyas gave on these two verses, which, can shed more light and understanding of what's going on. So, Srila Sukadev Goswami addressed Maharaj Parikshit and narrates the reaction that a group of women of Mathura are having by seeing Krishna fighting Chanura and Balaram fighting Mushtika. So externally appear a quite terrible arrangement, because Mushtika and Chanura was these gigantic, powerful wrestlers, and Krishna and Balaram, they appear very, very young and also fragile in one sense, in comparison, in other words, in comparison. Krishna and Balaram were, just very young. It is explained that we're around in the 11 years old. Of course, they're not the typical 11 years old that we see, that we're accustomed to see. However, they were very young. And so for pious people that were seeing this whole scenario, they reacted with great concern. So this is what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explained on this. The woman began to discuss about the unfairness of the match between the strong Chanura and Mushtika and the weak Krishna and Balaram. Of course, this was what the heart was, reacting to. In other words, their understanding of Krishna and Balaram positions has been covered by this particular strong feeling that they were experiencing. The reason was their compassion. This was a symptom of their natural affection for Krishna. Because of that, they did not recollect Krishna and Balaram's superior strength. So remember, Krishna and Balaram have just killed this enormous 8,000-pound elephant. And they entered the arena with the gigantic toss of this elephant. They rip it and they just enter. That was their weapons, So the display of power that Krishna and Balaram have shown is out of this world. But just see what the affection that they felt for Krishna was able to do, that their understanding of Krishna was covered. That is called Maya. But in this case, this is explained as Yoga Maya. Is the spiritual manifestation on this potency of Krishna that is called Maya, or illusory potency. Basically, by Maya, we're not able to see Krishna as he is. Knowledge of Krishna becomes cover. In the case of these pure ladies, devotees, pure-hearted ladies, because of their prema, Yoga Maya covers their vision, and they are not able to see Krishna as he is, Krishna and Balaram. And therefore, they see Krishna as Balaram as weak, which is is again, terribly surprising. But you can see that the effect of both this, how Maya works, that even in the presence of Krishna, even right after Krishna performed these superhuman feats, the people in the arena becomes covered either by Yoga Maya or by Mahamaya. Mahamaya is the other side of Maya, the one that covers those who are not pure, who are, afflicted by ahamkara, or the false ego. So, in the case of these ladies, they see Krishna as weak in Balaram. In the case of Chanura, Mustika, and other, we just read this verse, and other ignorant people, they see that, they're fighting Krishna as, as an equal opponent, as an ordinary person. And they may feel, they had a chance because Krishna is smaller, and like that. So they also don't see Krishna. So this is how Maya works. Srila Jiva Goswami comments in this verse. The women say that the match was unequal. They gather in different groups. They're praised for having compassion because of the pure prema. So remember that in this particular narration, there is, in the arena in which this fight is taking place, that you can imagine as a great coliseum, thousands and thousands of people of this great capital city of the Yadu dynasty was, this whole arrangement was done. The narration tells of the different types of rasas that were presented, or that were present in that arena. And we hear of the men of Mathura. They were having this Abduta ras, which is one of the secondary rasas, or the secondary moods. They have natural prema, and when they see Krishna, this secondary rasa that is called Abduta, or wonder, surprise, they were astonishment. They were completely astonished by Krishna's power, by Krishna's position. And they were praising Krishna. In the case of the woman of Mathura, now they're experiencing something that is called Shoka Ras, or Karuna Ras. Shoka or Karuna. Shoka or Karuna means compassion. It's one of the secondary rasas. Now, the rasas that are, these 12 rasas that are described in the Nectar of Devotion, they all meant to enhance and to churn out the prema, the natural prema of the devotee. It brings out their attachment and their love towards Krishna, enhances it. It makes it, like it is explained like, you churning milk and making burfi. It becomes thicker and thicker and thicker until, it becomes this substance that is, burfi. That when you put it in your mouth, it melts into this explosion of rasas, of flavors, like that. These emotions brings out and enhances the love that the devotee have for Krishna. So these ladies were experiencing that, were experiencing this compassion towards, the situation that they saw. And that enhanced their attachment towards Krishna. It is explained that also Vasudeva and Devaki were also experiencing this same type of rasa that were increasing their main rasa, which is Vatsalya or parental. And they were also experiencing this anxiety of Krishna being in some danger, fighting these gigantic, wrestlers. So this particular rasa of Karuna rasa is related to actually when you see some injustice and when you see some situation that you feel sorry for the person, like that. So of the pastimes of the Lord, the one that exemplifies strongly this rasa of compassion and sorrow is the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra. The pastimes of Lord Ramachandra from beginning to end is filled with this mood throughout of sorrow and lamentation, constantly, over and over and over. In all the stages of the narrations of the Ramayan, this is the prevailing mood. There's only little spaces in which, there's other moods that are highlighted like that. But it always, it's almost like all the little rivers that goes into the big, they all, ends in this big river that is this feeling of sorrow. It's quite something, because when you visit the Ayodhya, even nowadays, you still have that sense of sorrow. Even, aspiring devotee like some of us can experience that. I had that experience where I have the opportunity of visiting Ayodhya, which is, the holy place of Lord Ramachandra's pastime. It's the capital of the dynasty, the Son dynasty in which, Lord Ramachandra appeared. So when you go there, it's very beautiful, but what happened is that there's a political arrangement there between the divisions between Muslims and Hindus, and there's a situation in which to be able to enter into and take darshan of the deities in the place of birth of Lord Ramachandra, the place of appearance, You have to go through all these different, stops and all these different things. And then when you're able to come to the deity, you expect that in the place of appearance of Lord Ramachandra, there's a great, magnificent temple that, when you go to Dwarka, there's a Dwarkadish temple. When you go to Vrindavan, there's so many wonderful temples of, Lord Krishna. When you go to Sri Rangam or Jagannath Puri or to see Venkatesh, in what's the name of that city? Tirupati. These are magnificent, great temples. So you expect to see Lord Ramachandra in a magnificent temple in Ayodhya. But when you go there, what you see is the deities of Shishi, Sita, Ram, Lakshman, and Hanuman on their shed, on their, makeover little shed, with, a military guard, just, watching in case there's some type of danger or something, some types of terrorist thing. And you can't help to feel sorry, to feel some hurt, some pain, like this is the situation of this. But, but on the other hand, then you find that sense of sorrow makes you meditate more and more in this mood of Lord Ramachandra, and bring you closer to this type of meditation, with devotion. So it's quite something. So there's this experience of Karuna Rasa, and this is what these ladies are now experiencing. And that experience is enhancing their attachment and their love for Krishna. Srila Sanatana Goswami comments on verse number 6. The words, having seen these, should be added. Or they speak this way about him without knowing about him as a resident of Mathura. They were full of affection by their nature and spoke without examining issues closely. Sukadev calls to Parikshit, "You, as a king, understand this. They were in groups. Out of prema, they were all in agreement, and their words were attractive." And in text number 7, also we have some nice comments from our Vaishnavacharyas. This is now the woman saying, "Oh, alas, what a greatly irreligious act the members of this royal assembly are committing." So they're complaining, they see an injustice, they see something wrong. What an irreligious act is being committed here. And their question, how is it possible? And how is it possible that even if the king wants to watch this, what about all the great people that is in this assembly, part of this great dynasty? How is that they dare, without saying anything, watching all this injustice? So they question like that. So they feel not only sorrow, but they also feel upset about the situation, of the injustice that is taking place. And they're saying it loud. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, the discussion of the woman is described in 10 verses. If the king sees a fight between young boys and strong adults, he should stop it. When the spectators see that the king is watching, they follow suit. and simply watch. The king desires to watch, and they imitate him. This Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur highlights the great responsibility that leaders have. A leader, a king, a president, a leader. If they do things, then people will follow. Krishna explains that, in the Bhagavad Gita, whatever a great man does, common people follow. Therefore, we should show by example. Those who are leaders, they should show by example. So if the king sits down watching injustice, watching something that is irreligious happening, people will follow. People will also do this, imitate or do the same like that. So the ladies are bringing this out. They're complaining about this. Srila Jiva Goswami comments, 10 verses describe what they say. Since it was the king's assembly, it should have been able to discern dharma. The others desire to see this, since the king watches. Bata indicates lamentation. So, one of the things that we can understand is for these ladies, all these experiences, again, enhances their natural affection for Krishna. Now, if we're not in the same level, for those who are not in the stage of prema that can experience, these rasas, because only when you come to the stage of bhava, you can actually start to experience, enter into this rasa bhava. Before that, as long as we are afflicted by our conditioning, we still have traces of these samskaras or this conditioning. Then what we experience as devotees is called what is it? It's a reflection. What is the word? What's the word when you chant the holy name? The way we chant the holy name, when it's a reflection of the holy name, it's not pure. It's not Sudanam, but it's Nama Abbas. It's an Abbas. This Abbas means that is a reflection. It's not the real thing. It reflects the real thing. So we experiencing this Abbas of a particular rasa, or of a particular devotional emotion, or the emotion, it has some devotional connotation, therefore it's an Abbas. So, but it doesn't, is mixed with whatever level of samskaras we have still to clear. So, in the case of these ladies, they see injustice and they're reacting towards injustice. And that reaction enhances their prema. In the case of many of us in their situation, that one of us that are afflicted still by these samskaras, we also will react to situations in which we see injustice. We see something that is not right. And we can react with the same thing. We can react with karuna, we can react with compassion, we can react with anger, we can react with, so many different emotions that are there. Some reaction will be. But if we allow those samskaras to actually drive, our actions and how we react, if we allow them that, then we can end in a situation that is, we go deeper and deeper into that samskara. So rather to experience the bliss of Krishna consciousness, we experience the miseries of the material world. So it's a very important thing to keep in mind. Therefore, Krishna, in the Bhagavad Gita, he tells Arjuna that in the second chapter, after the verse Karma Dieva Dikaraste, famous verse that you should perform your duties. You're only allowed to perform your duties, but don't think yourself as the doer, nor the enjoyer, not, that you can give up your duties. You can't do that. So he says, that Yogasta kuru karmani sangantyaktua dananjanya siddhya siddhyo samabhutva samatvam. So this is the important word. Samatvam yoga uchate. Samatvam. Samatvam, sama means equipoise. Samatvam means equipoise. So Krishna tells us that, and this is, take in mind, Krishna's instructions are for devotees, like most of us, who are still afflicted by some conditioning. He's speaking to Arjuna, who is taking the position of a regular, of a devotee who is still afflicted. That's why Arjuna went to that whole situation of becoming completely confused and bewildered about this situation that he had to fight this world. So Krishna gives this instruction, how to work, how to do your duties in the face of all these types of things that material world throws at you. And he says, perform your duty equipoise, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. So Krishna is asking us to constantly strive for this equanimity, for this position of being neutral to happiness, distress, to fame and infamy, to justice and injustice. You have to be equipoise. And you should never give up your duty. You should continue performing your duty. And that's the instruction. So, the situation of dealing with the samskaras, we can understand that how deep the samskaras are influencing us. Because what happened is that when we see something, or when we experience a particular something, some of these external experiences can trigger a particular samskara, a particular emotion. Samskaras is the definition of these different recorded experiences that you take as part of your identity. It makes up your identity. They're all experiences of, in the gross plane that one start to pile, And sanskaras can be negative and can be positive, They're important. That's why in the Vedic culture, they put a lot of emphasis on creating positive samskaras. So, there's all, from the very beginning of the conception, the very beginning in which a living entity enters into the womb of the mother, there are samskaras. And these samskaras will create all these positive impressions that will support, a very, very healthy life throughout, this particular lifetime of the living entity. But there's negative samskaras too. When proper religious sacrifices, when they're not there, when things are done without following any of these prescribed duties, religious duties, then negative samskaras happens. So the term that Krishna uses for persons who take birth in this type of circumstances is Varna Shamskara. Varna Shamkara, or basically, he calls it unwanted population, unwanted progeny. So all these negative samskaras, or even the positive samskaras will become triggered by a particular situation that we experience. If the samskara is negative, then that thing will trigger. If we see something that causes that particular emotion. So in the case of injustice, then something triggers. If I experience in this lifetime, or maybe in previous lifetime, some situation in which I was a victim of an injustice, and the experience was very painful. When I see injustice that can trigger that, and I start to experience the pain of that original samskara, right? And then the reaction will be not according to the situation right now, but the situation that caused that deep samskara, or that, emotional wound. So we can understand when one of these samskaras has been triggered, and how deep that samskara that's been triggered by the emotional overreaction to a particular situation. And for how long that goes on, actually bothering us and affecting our life, for how long it goes, that we hold to that. It tends to work like that. If that samskara was not so deep, then we may experience, some disappointment and even some type of agitation. We feel agitated by the situation. But if it's not so deep, then at one point we start to realize, well, this is really out of my control. This is just something that is happening out there, and I don't have to participate, So I just accept the situation as is what it is, and I able to put myself in a much more equipoise position. My mind becomes settled. But if I cannot do that, then I can understand my sanskara has been triggered, and it goes deep. And then I'm going to end with this, because it's quite something to understand how this stuff works and the implications of. This is from the pastime of Maharaj Parikshit, capturing the personality of Kali, beating the bull that represents religion. Maharaj Parikshit see this savage person in disguise of a king beating a bull in a secluded place. Maharaj Parikshit immediately chastised this irreligious personality, who actually was the personality of Kali. And then he turns towards the bull and asks the bull the following question. "Oh, who are you? Are you the bull? Are you a bull as white as a white lotus? Or are you a demigod? You have lost 3 of your legs and are moving on only one. Are you some demigod causing us grief in the form of a bull? Now, for the first time in a kingdom well protected by the arms of the kings of the Kuru dynasty, I see you grieving with tears in your eyes. Up till now, no one on earth has ever shed tears because of royal negligence. O son of Surabhi, you need lament no longer now. There is no need to fear this low-class Sudra. And, O mother cow, as long as I am living as the ruler and subduer of all envious men, there is no cause for you to cry. Everything will be good for you. O chaste one, the king's good name, duration of life, and good rebirth vanish when all kinds of living beings are terrified by miscreant in his kingdom. It is certain the prime duty of the king to subdue first the suffering of those who suffer. Therefore, I must kill this most wretched man because of his violence against other living beings." He, Maharaj Parikshit, repeatedly addressed and questioned the bull thus: "O son of Surabhi, who has cut off your 3 legs? In the state of the king, who are obedient to the laws of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, there is no one as unhappy as you. O bull, you are offenseless. O bull, you are offenseless and thoroughly honest. Therefore, I wish you all good. Please tell me of the perpetrator of these mutilations, which blacken the reputation of the sons of Pritha. Whoever caused offenseless living beings to suffer must fear me anywhere and everywhere in the world. By curbing dishonest miscreants, one automatically benefits offenseless. An upstart living being who commits offenses by torturing those who are offenseless shall be directly uprooted by me, even though he may be a denizen of heaven with armor and decoration. The supreme duty of the ruling king is to give all protection to law-abiding persons and to chastise those who strayed from the ordinance of the scripture in ordinary times when there is no emergency. Now, this is the part that is quite something. The personality of religion said, answering the question of the king, "These words just spoken by you befit a person of the Pandava dynasty, captivated by the devotional qualities of the Pandavas. Even Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, performed duties as a messenger. O greatest among human beings, it is very difficult to ascertain the particular miscreant who have caused our suffering, because we are bewildered by all the different opinions of theoretical philosophers. Now mind, he had that guy next to him who just beat him, mercilessly. And he say, it's very difficult to understand who is actually the perpetrator. There are also some thinkers who believe that no one can ascertain the cause of distress by argumentation, nor know it by imagination, nor express it by words. O sage among kings, judge for yourself by thinking over all this with your own intelligence. Then Sutta Goswami said, O best among the Brahmanas, the Emperor Parikshit, thus hearing the personality of Godhead religion speak, was fully satisfied and without mistake or regret gave his reply. Anyway, because I want to leave at least few minutes for some discussion. Let me just go to the part that I find quite powerful. That King Parikshit said, yes, King Parikshit says the following. Now, listen to this. It's quite something. And it's very much, it's an important point when we have to deal with how we react to things that are, is either in which, we're affected by. And so the king said, O you who are in the form of a bull, you know the truth of religion, and you are speaking according to the principle that the destination intended for the perpetrator of irreligious act is also intended for one who identifies the perpetrator. You are no other than the personality of religion. So, the type of reaction that comes to a perpetrator, if we decide by our reaction to enter into that dynamic, then we also gonna end in some similar space. I read it again. That the destination intended for the perpetrator of irreligious acts is also intended for one who identifies the perpetrator. So to get into, this, you are doing this injustice, you are false, you are this, you get caught into the same destination, the same type of miseries, the same type of reactions, and the spiral go down. So back again, then the position is a position of striving from performing your duties equipoise in mind. Always strive, always, take a step back and then go back to that position of equipoise. It's not easy, but it's part of the practice of yoga. That's what we're doing. That's what we signed for. We have only 5 minutes for questions. I want to stop at 8:45. It took a little longer because it's such an important subject matter, and I think it's very relevant nowadays. So wanted to share that. Any comments or questions? Vaishnava, get the mic.
There's a lot going on. A lot of things touch on. The definition of indignation and being able, I just looked it up, so I didn't know what indignation meant. So I looked it up. It says to be able to use anger because you see injustice. So that's there. And then staying equal posed. And we have a saying, my friends of mine, that you only see in others what you possess in yourself. So if you point the finger, three pointing at you and one at God. So other people are basically, you're reflecting what's in you sometimes, and then you see it, but rather than identify it, you should go internal and say, well, what in me is actually doing this? And then there's the thing of, in the Bhagavad Gita, speaks about the modes of nature. One who is intelligent ceases to see individuals. I have to look it up because I can't quote the verse and everything. But it seemed like it's more, from the Bhagavad Gita, I was getting that we should more so just see the modes of nature going on. And that way we'll be able to be more equal posed, like you were saying, and just say it's just the modes of nature, rather than he did this or she did that, because it's constantly going to be there.
Yeah.
That's my thought anyway.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah. In other words, the other thing to take into consideration is, that means that I should not say anything. I should be, okay, okay, like that when we see injustice happen. So the question is not about talking and expressing yourself. The thing is that you do that, you perform your duty, but you try to have an equipoise mind, a balance or neutral, You don't go, you're not afflicted by this or by that. So obviously, easy to say it, right? That's not so easy to, but we should strive for that. We should strive for that. And if I can see that I am sort of so worked out that I'm feeling all these emotions that I cannot control, then that's my key. Something is controlling me. And then I have to step back and then review myself. Why am I feeling like that? Why I'm so controlled by this thing? Instead of being able to speak and direct the situation in a way that is control, then I'm driven by these emotions. And then, I'm going to the same destination of the culprit. So that's the thing that we have to observe. We have to say, wait a minute, I don't want to go to that destination. That's this person's problem. That's not my problem. My problem is that I'm right now being driven by these emotions, So like that. It's a very deep discussion on this, Any last point, anyone else? Okay, so we can stop here. Grantara Shriman Bhagavatam ki jai.